My name is Jillian Mitchell. I'm 35 years old. And this is the story of how I bled out alone, while my family smiled for cameras, and how I finally made them beg at my feet when their world collapsed. The night it all started, I was alone in my office, the glow of my laptop screen the only light in the room. It was almost midnight in Savannah. Outside my window, the trees swayed in the humid wind, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. But all I could hear was the tap of my fingers against the keyboard and the thud of my heart pounding inside my chest. I was rewriting the restructuring plan for my father's failing company, again. Richard Mitchell, once a respected businessman, had gambled away his fortune on too many doomed ventures. My mother, Margaret, spent her days smiling at charity galas and warning me not to let our name be dragged through the mud. And my sister, Sienna, Sienna had just boarded a flight to Hawaii, maxing out the last credit card I paid off for her. She texted me just before takeoff. "Cora, you know? Only you can save Dad now." That was the last thing she said before switching off her phone. Not thank you, not I'm sorry. Just more weight thrown onto my already fractured spine. They didn't even call me Jillian anymore. I was just the fixer. The solution. The machine. I didn't even flinch anymore when the 3 a.m. crisis calls came. I just brewed another cup of coffee and opened another spreadsheet. But tonight was different. There was a tightness in my stomach. A deep, searing pressure that felt like something inside me was tearing. I paused for a moment, pressing my palm against my lower abdomen, but kept typing. I couldn't afford to stop. My mother called minutes later. "Jillian, I just saw the article about tomorrow night's gala. Don't forget to send your father the new report before the event. You know how important our reputation is." "I know, Mom," I whispered. She hung up without another word. My stomach twisted again, this time harder. I tasted metal in my mouth. Still, I pressed on. I had learned long ago that pain didn't matter, not if it threatened the illusion of a perfect Mitchell family. Then came another message from Sienna. "Send me $12,000. Need it for a deposit. Don't embarrass me in front of my friends. No greeting. No concern. Just demands." My hand shook. I reread it again and again, then closed my eyes as another sharp pain made me bend over my desk. My breath came short, like I'd been punched from the inside. But I gritted my teeth and finished the document. I hit send on the email just before the screen blurred into darkness. The next thing I remember is the crash of my chair hitting the floor and my body following it. I reached for my phone, sweat cold on my skin, lips trembling. I called my mother first. No answer. Then my father. Nothing. Finally, I dialed Sienna. She picked up. "Cora, I can't talk right now. I'm about to go on stage. It's the family gala, remember? I think I'm bleeding inside," the doctor said. "Oh my God, Cora," she hissed. "Please don't ruin tonight. I'm getting the Young Inspiration Award." And then she hung up. That was the moment it happened, not the physical collapse, but the spiritual one. That's when I knew I had to stop dying for people who wouldn't even pause their applause for me. The paramedics arrived minutes later. My body was limp on the floor, pain throbbing like war drums under my skin. Someone pressed an oxygen mask to my face. Another voice, urgent and close, muttered words like internal bleeding and ruptured ovarian cyst. They cut through my clothes. My vision blurred. "Stay with me," one of them said. I whispered the only word I could manage, "Mom." But there was no reply. Only the scream of the ambulance slicing through the city as I slipped into unconsciousness. 78 seconds. That's how long my heart stopped on the operating table. While they fought to bring me back to life, my family was on stage at the Stanton Grand Hotel, accepting awards and smiling for cameras. I came back, but something in me didn't. Something in me stayed dead on that table. When I woke up in the hospital, the antiseptic smell clung to the air like shame. Neon lights glared from the ceiling. Machines beeped beside me. A nurse smiled kindly. "You made it, Jillian. You really scared us." I turned my head to the phone on the table. One notification. Sienna Mitchell posted a new video. There she was, in full golden gown glory, grinning beside my parents, trophy in hand. The caption read, "The most unforgettable night of my life. Thank you to my amazing family for always supporting me." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I set the phone down and did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I opened my contacts. Found the names Mom, Dad, Sienna. And I deleted them. One by one. Not out of hate. Out of clarity. That was the moment I began to live. The room was still when I opened my eyes again. Light from the hallway spilled under the door, but the silence inside was thicker than any night I'd ever known. For the first time in 35 years, I felt no urge to check my email, no obligation to fix anyone's disaster, no gnawing worry about what would happen if I didn't respond fast enough. All I felt was empty. And free. A nurse named Rowan came in quietly with pain medication and water. Her kindness startled me. Not because of what she did, but because I wasn't used to anyone doing something for me without asking for something in return. She said softly, "We called the numbers you listed as emergency contacts. No one picked up. No one's come." I nodded. "They won't." I think she wanted to say something else, but she just gave a sad smile and left. I stared at the door long after it closed. It didn't hurt like it used to. It didn't burn the way their silence once had. It was something else now. A numbness I welcomed. A reminder that the only person I could rely on was me. Later that evening, Emery showed up. She was the only one who had texted "Are you okay?" when word reached the office that I'd collapsed. My closest colleague, and maybe the only person in my life who had never tried to use me. She walked in holding a steaming cup of real coffee, not that machine sludge hospitals provide. "Figured you'd need this," she said, her voice warm and real. I sat up slowly, wincing at the sharp ache in my abdomen. "You have no idea." She handed me the coffee and sat beside me, her face clouded with quiet concern. "I spoke with the legal team. That got my attention. They're starting the paperwork. Your personal accounts. Your trust. The assets your grandmother left, it's all being reviewed now. I also asked them to restrict access. Temporarily, until we can see what's going on." Something shifted in my chest. "You think they took something, don't you?" "I think," Emery said carefully, "you've carried this family on your back for so long, they started thinking it was your job to let them drain you." Her words hit harder than I expected. I bit my lip to stop it from trembling. I didn't want to cry again. Not today. Not when I was finally waking up. Later that night, I opened my phone. I didn't know what I expected, maybe a "how are you," or a crumb of regret. Instead, there it was. A text from Sienna. "Cora, I need you to transfer $5,000 for the post-gala party. Sponsors are pressing. Please don't mess this up." No mention of the hospital. No mention of my surgery. Just the usual entitlement. Right after came another message, this time from my mother. "Cora, your father needs you to review the new budget sheet before the morning meeting. Be sure to send it by 8 a.m. I stared at the screen, then laughed. Not from joy. From the absurdity of it all. I had nearly died. My heart had literally stopped. And all they saw was a missing cog in the Mitchell machine. That night, I made the decision. The real one. I opened my email, addressed it to Human Resources and Legal at the firm I worked at, the same firm where I'd built a reputation, earned respect, led million-dollar deals while still managing my family's circus behind the scenes. Request to update all emergency contacts. Please remove current contacts from record. New list will be submitted shortly. I hit send. And just like that, I started cutting the strings. 2 days later, Emery came again. But this time, she looked different. Her expression wasn't just concerned, it was determined. She brought her laptop. Jillian, there's something you need to see. I sat up slowly, the pain still lingering, but duller now. She turned the screen toward me. What I saw chilled me. A scanned document, a medical power of attorney form, submitted the night I went into surgery. The signature was mine. Except it wasn't. I cross-checked the timestamp, Emery said. Sienna submitted it while she was backstage at the gala. The same time she told you she was about to accept her award. I stared at the screen, my heart crawling up into my throat. She faked my signature? Emery nodded. It was her excuse for not being there. She needed the hospital to think she had control, even if she didn't show up. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just sat there, mouth slightly open, eyes burning. Not from betrayal, that ship had sailed. From disbelief that even in my medical crisis, their first instinct was to manipulate, cover, and protect themselves. Emery slid another folder toward me. There's more. Inside were bank statements. Legal filings. Property transfers. Things I didn't even know existed. The trust your grandmother left you? They've been pulling from it for almost 10 years. Slowly. Quietly. Tens of thousands at a time. And 3 years ago, your father sold the house she left in your name. The deed was falsified. We have proof. The air was sucked from my lungs. That was the only thing left just for me, I whispered. They sold it, Emery said gently. To cover their debts. It took everything in me not to scream. Not to cry. Not to rip the 4 out of my arm and run until I collapsed again. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone. A message had just arrived. From Sienna, hey, need $10,000 more. Urgent. Don't ruin everything. And just like that, I knew what I had to do. I turned to Emery, my voice steady. Get the lawyer. Freeze everything. File for audit. And burn every bridge. She nodded, no questions asked. As I watched her walk out of the hospital room, something bloomed inside me. Not anger. Not grief. Power. They were about to lose the one person who always cleaned up their messes. And when their storm finally came, I wouldn't be there to catch the rain. 3 days after I was discharged from the hospital, I stepped into my office again, a place that had once felt like a cage, now transformed into my sanctuary. The same dark mahogany desk, the framed photo of my team, the neatly organized binders, all still in place. But I was different. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking in as Jillian the fixer, the patchwork daughter. I was Jillian, survivor. Jillian, architect of her own freedom. Emery was already there, waiting with her usual calm and a fresh cup of herbal tea. I brewed it myself, she said with a soft smile. It's time you had people taking care of you. I took the cup with both hands, feeling its warmth seep into my skin. Thank you, for everything. She leaned against the corner of the desk. They're going to come, you know. When they realize they can't access your accounts. They'll come running. I'm ready, I said. And for once, I meant it. I didn't have to wait long. By noon, Sarah, my assistant, knocked gently on the glass door. Jillian, your father's downstairs. He collapsed in the lobby. Says he just wants to see you. My stomach didn't twist. My heart didn't race. I simply stood, adjusted my jacket, and walked to the elevator. When I stepped into the marble-floored lobby, there he was. Richard Mitchell. Former tycoon. Now a broken man slumped against a column, one hand pressed to his chest, sweat glistening on his temples. People stood nearby in concerned silence. But no one moved to help. When he saw me, he whispered hoarsely, "Jillian." I knelt beside him, just enough so no one else could hear. "Get up," I said, my voice like stone. "This isn't the place for theater." His eyes widened. "Jillian, please. I'm not pretending. The bank is moving on the house. The company's sinking. If you don't help us, we'll lose everything. Your mother. Sienna." I stood slowly. "And when I almost lost my life?" I asked. "You couldn't even pick up the phone." He grabbed at my sleeve, desperate. "You're my daughter. You can't abandon us now. Please. Just give us a chance to fix this." I pulled my arm free. "No. I gave you 1,000 chances. You gambled with my future, my trust fund, my health. You sold the house my grandmother left me. You forged my signature while I was bleeding out." He blinked, stunned. "I'm not your lifeline anymore." Security approached, silent but ready. I nodded to them. "Escort him out gently," I said. As they helped him to his feet, he looked over his shoulder, his voice bitter. "You'll regret this, Jillian. One day, when you're alone, when you need family, you'll remember this moment." I stared back, my gaze unwavering. "No. I'll remember this moment as the one I finally chose myself." Back upstairs, Emery was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed. "He tried the chest pain trick?" "Classic," I said with a humorless chuckle. But it wasn't over. Minutes after I sat down again, my phone lit up. A message from Sienna. "Cora? You have to help me. I just got a foreclosure notice from the bank. People are talking. This is going to destroy our image. Don't be petty, fix it." I didn't reply. Another message followed, this time from my mother. "Jillian, your father is distraught. I'm begging you, don't let this family fall apart. Don't let us lose everything. You've always been the responsible one. Please, don't let me down." Still, I said nothing. Instead, I opened my laptop and sent one final, brutal email. To Attorney Margaret. Confirm the complete severance of financial ties. Block all future legal and financial contact with Richard, Margaret, and Sienna Mitchell. All communications moving forward must go through legal counsel. I request a restraining order if necessary. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, staring at the quiet city beyond the window. And I smiled, not because I wanted revenge. Because I finally had peace. 2 weeks passed. I moved into a modest but sun-drenched apartment overlooking the river in Charleston. No servants. No grand halls. No expectations. Just a kitchen that smelled like fresh lemons and windows that caught every golden hour. Emery visited often. One night, we clinked glasses in my living room, surrounded by open boxes and new possibilities. "To a life of your own," she said. "To never going back," I replied. But peace, I've learned, doesn't silence those who thrive on drama. Soon after, news broke. Mitchell Holdings declares bankruptcy. Mitchell family home to be auctioned off. Family fortune in shambles. Then came the social fallout. Sienna's engagement, the one she had flaunted all over social media, crumbled. Her fiancé left her, publicly. Lawsuits from wedding vendors flooded in. My mother's charities removed her from boards quietly but effectively. My father was shamed in the press for mishandling investors' funds. Everything I once held together, unraveled in weeks. I wasn't surprised when they made their next move. A video surfaced online. My mother, seated on the steps of our once grand home, her face streaked with tears. Cora, if you're watching this, please don't abandon your family. Your father's health is declining. We're losing everything. We need you. Please come home. The comments rolled in. Where is the daughter? Heartless child. After all they gave her? Family is everything. I didn't respond. I didn't explain. Because those who know the truth don't need it explained. And those who ignore it, never will. That night, Emery sat beside me as I scrolled through the video. She squeezed my shoulder. They're playing the victim. Trying to pull you back with guilt. I exhaled slowly. They don't have power over me anymore. Then, I closed the app, opened a new tab, and began booking the trip I'd postponed for years. A journey to find something I'd never had the luxury of before. Myself. The sky over Charleston glowed pink as I sat at the little round table in my new apartment, fingers wrapped around a mug of warm tea. Outside, the river shimmered with morning light, and for the first time in decades, I didn't wake up to chaos. No missed calls. No crises. No breathless voicemails about emergencies that weren't mine. And yet, I still felt the aftershocks. The emotional whiplash of 35 years being everyone's safety net. Emery arrived a few minutes later with her laptop and an envelope. They're spiraling, she said as she placed it on the table. I already knew what she meant. The Mitchell name, once synonymous with class and influence in Savannah, was now the centerpiece of gossip threads and morning news segments. From American legacy to Southern scandal, the Mitchell fall from grace. Daughter goes silent, Mitchell estate seized, family pleads for help. Emery opened her laptop, revealing headlines, screenshots, even a video of my mother crying again, this time inside the darkened Mitchell mansion, surrounded by boxes. If Jillian doesn't come back, I don't know what I'll do, she said in the video. She was always the strong one. What's the point of living like this? I watched, quiet. No tears. Just a calm that came not from satisfaction, but from finality. Jillian, Emery said softly, don't let their desperation pull you back. You've already given more than anyone should ever have to give. I nodded. I know. That version of me, she died on the floor of that office. This Jillian doesn't answer guilt calls anymore. And I meant every word. Later that week, I opened my old camera bag, something I hadn't touched since college. Photography had once been my escape. Something private and precious. Before my family convinced me that art was a waste of time and duty came first. Now, for the first time in years, I picked up that camera again. I started taking photos. Of everything. The hospital bed, still and quiet, the 4 drip swinging in the corner. The foreclosure sign in front of the Mitchell mansion. A glass of untouched champagne from the last boardroom meeting I walked out of. The sunlight in my new apartment hitting the floor just right. My reflection in the river, free of expectations. Even the email I printed and framed, all financial ties legally severed. And I named the project, 78 Seconds, the time my heart had stopped, and the time my real life had started. With Emery's help, I booked a small gallery space along the river. Quiet, local. Nothing grand. I didn't expect it to go viral. But it did. The exhibit opened quietly one Thursday evening. By Sunday, local media had picked it up. 78 Seconds, a daughter's photographic journey from betrayal to freedom. People lined up. Some cried quietly in front of the hospital bed photo. Others stood frozen at the image of the Mitchell mansion, broken and boarded. And some whispered in stunned silence when they saw the side-by-side shots of my trust documents and Sienna's extravagant gala video. The final photo was of me standing at my new apartment window, looking out at the city, sunlight washing my face. That one didn't need a caption. It was then, right when I thought I was finally past them, that they showed up. My mother walked in first, dressed in pearls and a polished suit that couldn't hide the weight of scandal. Behind her was my father, thinner than I remembered, his eyes hollow. Sienna followed last, in oversized sunglasses, but her posture screamed shame. They froze as they entered. People turned. Whispers fluttered like leaves in wind. There they were, the perfect family, standing in the middle of a gallery where every wall screamed the truth they spent years hiding. My mother stopped in front of the photo of our old house. Underneath, the caption read, "The place once called home. Sold behind my back to cover their mistakes." Sienna turned pale when she saw her own words in a framed screenshot. "Don't ruin tonight. I'm about to get the Young Inspiration Award." My father stood silently at the photo of him collapsed in the office lobby. A single quote hung beneath it. "You'll regret this, Jillian." I stepped forward, my voice clear and even. "Welcome to the truth." My mother spun to face me, her voice low but sharp. "How could you do this to us? To your family? You've humiliated us." I didn't flinch. "I didn't humiliate you. I exposed you." "You've destroyed us," Sienna hissed, trembling. "People are laughing at us. Do you know what that feels like?" "Yes," I said coldly. "I do. I felt it every time you called me a failure behind my back. Every time you lied to cover your mess with my name. Every time I bled out alone while you toasted champagne." My father finally spoke. "You always said you wanted to protect this family." "And I did," I snapped. "Until it nearly killed me." They had no reply. Just silence, broken only by the shutter clicks of reporters who had somehow caught wind of their arrival. I turned my back to them and faced the room. "Everyone deserves to know the difference between truth and illusion," I said aloud. "This is not a revenge exhibit. It's a resurrection." The gallery erupted in soft applause. My mother, defeated, turned and walked out. My father followed. Sienna lingered, staring at the hospital photo. She whispered, "You really almost died?" I nodded. 78 seconds. "But I came back. Just not for you." Then I walked away. Later that night, I received an email from Margaret, my attorney. Subject, legal finalization, Mitchell Estate and Trust. Body, all documents finalized. No remaining obligations. No shared properties. You are free. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony, and watched the river flow. Everything I had ever been told to suppress, my truth, my pain, my voice, was finally out there. And they couldn't silence it anymore. 2 weeks after the exhibit, I boarded a plane bound for Paris. The flight ascended into the clouds just as the sun began to set, washing the cabin in golden hues. I stared out the window, watching Charleston fade beneath me, the city where I'd nearly lost my life, where I reclaimed it, and where I buried the illusion of what a family was supposed to be. Emery sat beside me, flipping through a travel magazine. She glanced over and smiled. "Ready for your real life to begin?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed copy of my gallery's media coverage. The headline read, "Daughter exposes family secrets in viral exhibit, a Southern legacy torn apart by truth." I folded it and put it away. "More than ready," I finally whispered. Paris greeted us with rain. Gentle, steady, romantic. Everything in the city moved at a different rhythm, one that didn't demand my soul in exchange for status. I walked with Emery through narrow cobblestone streets, stopping for pastries, listening to street musicians, and letting myself breathe. We rented a small apartment in Montmartre with ivy crawling up its stone walls and a view of the Eiffel Tower in the distance. The very first morning there, I woke up to the smell of coffee and fresh bread. Emery had found a boulangerie 2 blocks down. "This," I said as I bit into a flaky croissant, "is what healing tastes like." We spent the days exploring art museums, and the nights walking along the Seine. And one evening, sitting in a small bookstore tucked away near the Latin Quarter, I got the email. It was from a publisher. Dear Jillian Mitchell. We were deeply moved by your exhibit 78 Seconds. Your photos tell a powerful story, one of survival, truth, and freedom. Would you consider writing a memoir? We believe the world needs to hear your voice. I stared at the screen for a long time, then passed the phone to Emery. Her eyes widened. Jillian, this is... I know, I said quietly. But I'm not sure I have anything left to give. Yes, you do, she said, placing a hand over mine. Not to them. To you. You have your story. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, laptop on my knees, watching the lights on the Eiffel Tower flicker against the misty night sky. Then I opened a blank document. My fingers hovered for a second. And I typed. 78 seconds. That's how long my heart stopped on the operating table. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. The words flowed like water. All the things I had bottled for years, the pain, the betrayals, the tiny moments of courage, the loneliness, the rediscovery of self, I poured them into the page. I wrote through the night, the sun rising over Paris rooftops as I finished the first chapter. When Emery woke and found me still typing, she didn't ask questions. She just brewed coffee and kissed the top of my head. Weeks passed. The book began to take shape. And so did I. I was no longer Jillian the shadow, Jillian the fixer, Jillian the puppet to my family's pride. I was Jillian the writer. Jillian the woman who stood up and walked away, even when it nearly broke her. The manuscript was finished in less than 2 months. The publisher loved it. They wanted a full release, not just in the US, but internationally. We're going to title it exactly what it is, the editor said. 78 Seconds, the story of a daughter who chose herself. I signed the contract in a cafe across from Notre Dame. As I lifted my pen to sign the final page, I thought of my mother's voice, the way she used to say. Family is everything, Jillian. You sacrifice for them, no matter what. And I realized, she was wrong. Truth is everything. And sometimes the greatest love you can show your family is to stop enabling their self-destruction. The book release came quicker than I expected. Emery stood beside me at the launch in a small Paris bookstore. My photo, the one of me standing at the window in Charleston, light pouring over my face, was now the cover. When I held the first printed copy in my hands, I felt something strange. Closure. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just felt free. Then the messages started rolling in. Not from my family, they'd gone eerily silent since the exhibit. But from strangers. Hundreds of them. Thank you for sharing this. I lived a version of your story. You gave me the strength to walk away too. I thought I was the only one. And then one that made me freeze. Your book gave me the courage to say no for the first time in 20 years. I hope one day you feel as proud of yourself as I feel of you. That one broke me. I stepped away from the crowd, into the quiet back corner of the shop, and finally let the tears fall. Not from pain. Not from regret. But from release. When Emery found me, she just hugged me tight. You did it. I think I finally did, I whispered. It had been just over 3 months since the release of 78 Seconds, and life had shifted in a way I never imagined possible. The book became a quiet storm, spreading not through billboards or flashy campaigns, but through whispers, book clubs, personal recommendations. People passed it around like a secret, like a mirror they'd been too afraid to look into before. My inbox filled with stories from other daughters, sons, siblings, people who had been swallowed whole by their family's needs, never once asked if they were drowning. And just as I found peace, they came back. It began with a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter, written in my mother's handwriting, sent to the publishing house and redirected to my Paris apartment. The envelope was thick and heavy, her cursive precise, as if the appearance could somehow rewrite the past. Dear Jillian. I saw the book. We all did. I won't lie, I was angry. I still am. You aired our private pain. But I also know, deep down, that we left you alone when you needed us most. Your father's heart has gotten worse. Sienna's reputation has been ruined. The Mitchell name has become a joke. I don't expect forgiveness. But I am asking for mercy. Come home. Help us rebuild. We'll do it your way this time. I read the letter twice. Then I set it on the kitchen counter and walked out to the balcony. Paris moved below me, its streets pulsing with life, its sky moody and endless. I leaned against the railing, letting the wind pull at my hair. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't respond. I didn't explain. I didn't rescue them. Because this wasn't a movie where the prodigal daughter swoops in, forgives everything, and makes things right again. This was real life. And in real life, you cannot keep setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. But the Mitchells weren't done. The next blow came fast and desperate. A video went viral back in Savannah. Someone had recorded it from inside a courthouse. My sister, Sienna, was screaming at reporters, mascara running, hair undone. She's not a victim. She abandoned us. She destroyed her own family for a book deal. You think she's brave? She's a coward who ran away from the mess she helped create. The clip exploded online. Comments flooded in. Some people sympathized with her. Others tore her apart. But none of it mattered to me. Because what they didn't know was that the more she screamed, the more she proved my point. She had never cared about the truth, only the spotlight. Then came the final act. My mother filed a legal claim, trying to stop royalties from the book, claiming defamation, emotional damage, and unauthorized use of private family content. I wasn't surprised. But I was ready. The hearing was virtual. I sat in my Paris apartment, hair tied up, blazer crisp, Emery beside me like a quiet flame. The judge appeared on screen. So did my parents. My mother's face was tight with controlled rage. My father looked tired, older than I remembered, smaller somehow. And Sienna wasn't present at all. They tried to paint me as vindictive. They tried to twist every truth I'd written into malice. But I had what they didn't: evidence, documentation, witness testimony, signed transfers, and the truth. Every line in that book was drawn from reality, my reality. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't defend myself. I didn't apologize. I simply said, everything in that book is true. I told my story. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't invent. I survived. That's not defamation. That's documentation. The judge agreed. The claim was dismissed with prejudice. As the decision was read aloud, I watched my mother's eyes flicker, not with shock, but with something deeper, realization. For the first time, she saw that she no longer had control. That I was no longer afraid of her. That her silence, her manipulation, her conditional love, none of it worked anymore. They lost. Not just in court. But everywhere else, too. Sponsors dropped them. Lawsuits piled up. The mansion finally went to auction. And in one final blow to their pride, a local non-profit turned my gallery exhibit into a traveling show, starting in Savannah. Emery and I flew back quietly, unannounced. We stood in the back of the opening night crowd, watching as strangers walked through the photos that began my rebirth. The room buzzed with emotion. Teachers, artists, therapists, even teenagers, weeping, whispering, nodding. And then, the Mitchells arrived. They didn't see me in the back. But I saw them. My father hung his head low. My mother tried to hide behind her sunglasses, though we were indoors. Sienna, once vibrant and dressed like a goddess, now wore neutral tones, her expression unreadable. They made it halfway through the gallery before they saw the final new photo. It was a mirror. A full-length mirror. Framed in silver. Spotlit. The caption read, "The ones who broke me never expected me to heal." As they stood there, I slipped out through the side door. Because that moment wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. I had already found my peace. I didn't need to see their regret to feel complete. The Savannah Gallery exhibit came and went, and I never once spoke to them. My parents, my sister, anyone from that old world. I let them walk through the wreckage of the image they'd tried to preserve for so long, let them absorb it without me present to soften the blow. I owed them nothing, not even my presence. I returned to Paris like a woman who had closed the final chapter of a very long book. But life, it turns out, had more to write. The publisher called 2 weeks later. "We've had interest from several platforms," my editor said excitedly. "Streaming rights, adaptation inquiries. They want to bring 78 Seconds to life, in film. Possibly a limited series." I nearly dropped the phone. Me? Jillian Mitchell? The silent daughter, the family's fixer, the shadow no one saw? I wasn't just telling my story anymore, it was being heard. That night, I walked along the Seine, fingers trailing the stone bridge walls. Lights danced on the water. Emery walked beside me in silence, until I finally whispered, "They made me believe the best I could do was hold everything together." She smiled. "Turns out, breaking free was what made you unforgettable." The series deal moved fast. I was involved in everything: casting, direction, writing. I didn't want a Hollywood glossed version. I wanted truth. The raw kind. I insisted they keep the hospital scene real. The cold tile. The 78 seconds of silence. The emails. The unanswered calls. The moment I deleted their names from my contacts and chose myself. When they asked me about the ending, I said, let her walk away. Let her not need their apology to find peace. Let her build something without them. And so they did. 6 months after the series premiered, the world knew my name, not as a Mitchell, but as Jillian. Just Jillian. Independent. Whole. Honest. No longer edited down to fit someone else's story. I bought a home in the French countryside, small, warm, near lavender fields. A place where the silence wasn't heavy but healing. I painted. I photographed. I wrote. And then, on a late spring morning, I got a letter. No return address. Just one word on the envelope, Sienna. Inside was a note. You won. I see that now. You were the strong one all along. I'm sorry I never saw you when you were right in front of me. I'm trying to do better. I don't expect anything. But I hope you're happy. I folded it gently and placed it in a drawer, not because I forgave her, not because I needed to respond, but because for once, it wasn't a demand. It was the first honest thing she'd ever sent me. Years passed. The Mitchell name faded from headlines. The house was demolished. My mother moved to a retirement community near Atlanta. My father, from what I heard, lived alone in a small apartment, no longer invited to fundraisers or gala events. And me? I stood one day in front of a university crowd, guest lecturing on personal memoir and truth-telling in art. A young woman raised her hand and asked, "Do you think you needed to be broken first to become this version of yourself?" I paused. Then said, I think I needed to stop being afraid of the fallout. I wasn't broken. I was buried. And when I finally stepped into the light, I didn't shatter, I grew. After the talk, a student handed me a worn copy of 78 Seconds, the spine creased, pages marked up. This saved me, she whispered. I held it in my hands, the weight of it familiar now. You saved yourself, I said. The book just reminded you it was allowed. That night, I stood in my garden as the stars came out, Emery beside me. She wrapped her arm around mine. No more storms, she asked playfully. I looked up at the sky. No, I said. Only constellations. And as the breeze rustled the lavender and the world beyond felt quiet and safe, I whispered the words I had waited my whole life to say out loud. I'm free. I never went back to that old life. Not for closure. Not for reconciliation. Not even for curiosity. Because my story wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. And if there's one thing I learned from 78 Seconds of Silence, it's this. You don't have to wait for anyone to rescue you. Sometimes, saving yourself is the most powerful revenge of all. Thank you for listening to Jillian's story. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that they're allowed to walk away. That they don't need permission to begin again. Subscribe to Revenge Echoes for more unforgettable stories of healing, strength, and the triumph of truth over silence.